there, Joy. This is Joy. And Joy is someone that I grew up with. She was always like way younger than me. Such a cutie. Like, as you see, she's very cute now still. But she used to always come to our family events. And we would carry like the bigger kids, we would always carry like Joy and Rachel on our backs, like because they couldn't, their legs were so short, they couldn't walk as fast as we could. And Joy used to always like tell the cutest little jokes, and she was always so cutesy. And it's just so good to see her now as a grown woman, and she's like
Crazy.
still as adorable as she always was. And I get to actually interview her. I get the pleasure of interviewing her today for my The Magic is Real series, and I am very, very honored to interview you, Joy.
Well,
I just want you to talk about yourself. Like, what do you do now? Like, what was your profession when you got older? What was your profession? What
well,
is your
so
profession now?
interesting because, like, as you remember, as a kid, as you're saying, I always like to entertain, tell jokes, and things like that. And growing up, I always thought that I would be an actress. I said, I'm going to go to Hollywood and that's what I'm going to do. Well, then for some reason, the thought of kissing a bunch of people grossed me out. And I said, oh no, we cannot become an actress. We are going to become a journalist. Because I looked at Oprah and I was like, she was somebody at the time growing up that I used to watch on TV. And I saw how she made the transition from doing news to also doing entertainment. So I was like, well, maybe that's a better route to go. So I actually ended up going to school at Howard University and majored in journalism.
Wow.
And ended up going on to be a television news reporter and anchor. I did it for 11 years. Absolutely best time of my life. It was an invaluable experience to cover stories, and I specialized particularly in health stories. And then I ended up getting recruited by a healthcare company, and I left the news business. But there was still this desire in me to still be connected to media. So I launched my own television talk show from the ground up. When I first started it aired before like a live studio audience. I don't know who I thought I was. I was like, come on, y'all. You would have thought like it was like, whoop, whoop, Joy's coming in the house. So I did that. And then it ended up getting picked up by a CBS station. And I ended up losing the audience and changed the show. It was originally The Hour of Joy, got changed to the Joy Sutton Show. And I did that for about 4 years, 4 seasons. Every year I would do a season. And then tragedy struck at the station I was at. There was actually two of the coworkers or colleagues there were murdered on live television right after the last season of my show. And then also the station got bought. And then those two things combined together just caused me to shut down. I think it was just a lot. I kind of shut down for about 4 years. I went from being on TV every day, pretty much from the age of like 20, 21 to 40. And then it all just coming to an end, 40, 41, and not doing any media. And I shut down. And then COVID happened. And because I kept saying, I know God's put purpose in me. I know I'm supposed to be on camera. I know I'm supposed to be sharing people's stories, but all of that just kind of kept me down. And COVID was like my wake up call. It was like in the midst of COVID, I felt like God was like, well, Joy, what if you passed away? And I said, gosh, I wouldn't have left my mark on the world. I wouldn't have done the things that I wanted to do. And from that, I launched in September of 2020, the Joy Sutton Show as a podcast. And so I finished up the first season, and now I'm looking forward to coming back and doing season 2. And in the interim, I'm still in healthcare in my day job. I work in healthcare for addiction treatment for people who struggle with alcohol and drug addiction. And I get to help share their stories with the world, their transformational stories, and to help people find access to care for that. So I live a crazy, amazing, exciting life now, and I'm blessed to be able to do what I get to do every day.
It's everything that you said is so impressive. I knew that we lost contact for a bit, and I knew that you were are in journalism. And I knew that you were a reporter for a while. Reporter, right? Reporter,
Yes.
you were on the news reporting, sitting behind the desk. And I was like so impressed with that. I was like, man, Joy is a journalist now. She's a reporter. And and you were always like so positive. And then I think I spoke with you when you were actually reporting, and you told me about some of the intricacies of reporting and stuff like that. And it was just so amazing. It sent chills down my spine to know that this little girl that had all these cute little jokes that we carried on our back was now a reporter on TV. And it was, and what state were you in when you were actually
Yeah, I was
reporting?
in
What state?
Virginia and now I'm based in
Virginia. Okay.
Nashville. So I was in Virginia
Nashville.
and yeah. But it's so crazy how, I love that you're doing this series because it's so crazy how so many of us have dreams as kids and our personalities and just different things and how life kind of evolves and to see where you end up and how many people actually went for it or how many people still have that dream but have not gone for it yet and think it's too late.
Exactly.
It really isn't. I'm relaunching my life at 45. I mean, I'm getting back in there at 45. So I don't think it's too
Wow.
late.
All right. So how old were you when you realized that you wanted to be, what age were you when you realized that you wanted to be a journalist?
I would say so. I started out young, like wanting to do an actress. I did plays all through middle school and even in the high school. And when I told you the story about not wanting to kiss a bunch of people, then I
Oh
started looking
yeah.
at other people and like, what do I want to do? And Oprah, I was 13. And I remember being about 13 and saying, that's what I want to do. And I didn't know anybody who had ever been on TV, like not like that. So it wasn't like I had like this roadmap of here's how you become a journalist. I didn't know anybody in my family that had ever been on TV. There was no like roadmap or anything like that. And then I also was in this group where they had people come to talk to us about colleges. And somebody had mentioned Howard University. And I'd never been there. And I said, that's the college I'm going to go to. I'm going to become a news reporter. And guess what? Howard was the one university where I got a full ride scholarship, paid for everything, room, board, housing, and everything. So I feel like it was so strategic to get there and then to figure out like this journalism thing and make my way into my career. But it wasn't an easy journey. Honestly,
Wow.
what's so interesting is when I graduated, it took me a year to get my first job. And in that moment,
So it took a year.
a year. So imagine you come out of college, I did like 6 internships in college, like everywhere. So I thought I was prepared. People were like, you'll get a job, you're talented. And I found myself, doing freelance stuff, but not on air stuff for a whole year. And I remember sitting down at the table with my dad and I said, well, maybe this isn't meant for me. I went to school, I thought I had this talent. It's been a year and no door is opening. And I was on the verge. This is how good God is. I was on the verge of not pursuing that. I was getting ready to sign a contract with a lady to do more interviewing. She did stuff for Entertainment Tonight and Hard Copy, but it was behind the scenes. And I was getting ready. She's like, Joy, I need you to sign like this 3-year contract with me. And I'm like literally a couple of days away from signing that contract. And I get a call from a place I interned at. And it was a coworker, a girl who I had met when I was there. And she goes, a job is opening. I believe this is your job. You should apply. And literally it was like that after that whole, 9 months to a year. And I went and I said, you know what? I know I can do behind the scenes. I've always wanted to be on air. This is my chance. It is go for it. And so I looked because there were so many times in life, I think even now where we see things don't happen in the time we think, we're like, but I'm prepared right. and this should happen. And it was just a reminder to me that sometimes God is strategic, not sometimes, always. And you never know how the pieces are going to be put together for you to get where you're supposed to be at the right time. And it all worked out. And I remember driving down. I didn't even make that much money, girl. They said, I remember the news director said, you're going to make $4.25. I said, wait, $4.25? Wow. He said, no, $425 a week, which was like $23,000. So I went to this city that I had interned at, didn't know anybody from jump, moved into a whole new place. My parents were in Minnesota and started my career, like literally, and built a following, built relationships. That became like my second home. So it's just a testament that, sometimes you think things have passed you by, but they really haven't. And everything.
Waiting a year. Yeah, that's amazing because a year it seems like a long time, but then it kind of doesn't. But you said you had a conversation with your father, and that what were his words of wisdom to you when you told him, I'm really considering not doing this, or was that the conversation that you had?
No. It is so funny because he was like, no, you went to school for this. This has been your dream. And I was like, well, yeah, maybe it's not really my dream. Maybe, I don't know. I started because it's so funny when sometimes when things don't happen for you, you begin to tell yourself that you don't even want them anymore. as I think it's kind of a
Wow.
self-protection. So I begin to tell myself, I found me telling myself, well, we don't even really want this, because I started to believe it
I'm
wasn't.
glad you stuck with it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
me
glad you
too.
stuck with it because you have such a bubbly, you've always had such a bubbly, like positive, like personality. And it's like there's not like, I mean, you probably were kind of up, not happy, like when you didn't get, I'm looking for the words, you probably were disappointed when your dream didn't come true in the exact time that you didn't want it to come true, whatever. But you stuck with it, and I guess your parents helped you along, because I remember your parents always being very supportive of you and all that. I
Yes.
love your relationship with your parents, and you stuck with it, and I'm glad you did, because I think that you are a blessing to many people, and like even young girls that want to pursue dreams that they don't come in the time that they expected to come. Just stick with it and keep pursuing your dream and your goal, and it will come into fruition. And like you just said, you help like people that are addicted to drugs or drug issues. I think that's amazing too within itself. So you're doing two jobs, and you're just an amazing individual. You're reporting still, and your show, you have your own show. I looked on Facebook because I follow you on Facebook, and I saw that I saw your show name change, like you said, and I was like, okay, so she has her own show. I'm like, that's pretty impressive. I thought that not only are you in journalism, but you created your own
Now,
show.
girl, when I did that from the ground up, it was so funny because I remember I would walk around telling people, someday I'm going to have my own show. And I didn't, and crazy thing, it's like I believed it, but half believed it. You know how you like just talking, and I would be like, oh, someday I'm going to have
Yeah,
my own talk show.
you
And
speak
it's
your
going to
fate. You speak your fate.
yes. And you just kind of, it was like I thought maybe, but I didn't really. And so I just believe when it happened, I remember one of my coworkers who actually ended up being my business partner for a little bit. She was like, you did it. Like you really did
Wow.
it. And I was like, how did that happen? So, you just never know how things, even how even if you just have a little bit of faith, sometimes we think we have to have like this big belief that it's going to happen. But sometimes I think it's just having like even just a little bit of faith to speak it, a little bit of faith that I would just say it. I'm going to have my own television talk show. I'm going to have my own television talk show. And I would tell people, and then boom, you know.
And you said you have your own podcast. Now, your podcast, it's like, is it like just a verbal podcast, or is it like what we're doing now, like talking? Is it
Well, right, it
visual,
started
verbal,
out,
or
so the first season was audio only. But as
okay?
I'm gearing up for season 2, it is going to be video because I know
Okay,
that's
good.
something that I miss. So it's going to be video, and I'm changing up the format a little bit. So when I brought the show back in the form of a podcast, it was very similar to some extent as my television show, just with audio. And now I'm still tweaking it because I think the show will continue to evolve as I meet new women and kind of see what the audience and the community really wants to hear.
Okay, and then how many in a season? How many shows are in a season per se?
Yeah, so 13 shows in a season. That's how many I did
Okay,
in the first season. And so typically
okay,
that's even with TV, it's around 13. So I did 13
13. Okay,
shows.
good to know.
But
Okay,
it's
I didn't know that.
amazing.
That's interesting.
But it's amazing because, one thing I tell people, even with you doing, your show now, Susan, talking about, getting this message out in your series that you're doing, it's like the gatekeepers are gone, and that all of us have the
Yeah,
opportunity to do so much now. I mean, heck, you can edit on your computer. Before you'd have to go
yes,
to a fancy studio or, hire people to do
exactly.
certain things. And now like we all have the opportunity to kind of write our own scripts per se.
Exactly. When I go and substitute teach young kids, especially grade schools, the first thing I do to introduce myself to them and to have them introduce themselves to me is I'll have them take out a piece of paper and fold it, and I'll have them write on there and stand up and tell me. I'm like, tell me what it is. Tell me your first name and what it is that you'd like to be when you grow up. And I
Mm-hmm.
have them fold the paper over and put it on their desk, so throughout the day I can address them as, okay, nurse so and so, nurse Kelly. I'm like, stand up and tell me how
Oh,
to do this math problem. So a lot of people talk about, like you said, like singing, acting, journalism. They say so many things. And when you said that when you were younger, I think you knew that you wanted to be an actress or an actress or so. But what would be your advice to young kids, as you know, if you were talking to them and they were like wanted to know about your field and how you got started? What would you tell them to encourage them to pursue their dreams? I know you said a lot already, but what would
Yeah, I
specifically
would
would you
just
say
say,
to like the second graders
oh, second grade, you're never
or
too,
whoever, whatever, first through eighth?
yeah. So I would say you're never too young to dream. And sometimes people are like, oh, you're so young, you don't know what you want, but that's not true. Sometimes I believe like God will plant dreams in our heart. I mean, I was so young. I was 13 when I knew this. That was really young. And I was probably 7 or 8 when I thought I wanted to be an actress. So this seed started so young. And so I would tell young people, it's don't disregard that just because you're so young doesn't mean you can't dream. Doesn't mean that you may not have a vision for what you want to do when you get older. And so I would just encourage you, like, if you have something that is speaking to you that you're like, oh gosh, I always wanted to be this, or I always wanted to learn about this, I would encourage you to learn about it, to find all the information and find somebody in that industry or that area that you're interested in that you can look up to. Because the one person, as I mentioned earlier, that I had Oprah. So I would be like, oh, and I went and I researched her and I was like, oh, she went to Tennessee State. Oh, she studied journalism. Oh, she went on to do this. And I honestly, in my mind, kind of looked at, let me map my life out like that. Let me map my career out in that kind of way. So I would encourage young people, if there's something in a career that inspires you, find a mentor. A mentor doesn't even have to be somebody that you can physically touch. It can just be somebody that inspires you, and research how they
Exactly.
do. And I even, when I was in high school, went and spent some time at like a TV station. Like I met somebody, I reached out to them and like, hey, I would love to come spend a day at the TV station. And I remember there was a lady and they said, sure, come on. And I ended up coming and spending some time at a TV station, and they put me in an undercover story, like people selling
Oh,
underage
wow.
tapes to students or something. And I must have been like 16, and they put a wireless mic on me and sent me in, and they're like, our undercover intern, Joy Sutton, walked into the store and she was able to buy it. So I just say that that would be my big thing. Don't disregard the fact that you're thinking about it. The fact that you're thinking about it means something. Find you a mentor, even if it's somebody you physically can't touch, but somebody that inspires you. Look at how they went about their life. What was their path? And see if you can start putting things into place to follow that path. And then see if there's somebody you can connect with. If it's TV, maybe reach out to the news station and say, hey, are there summer programs? Is there a way it could just come shadow you for a day? I'll never forget, there was a
That's
young
good advice.
Yeah, I was going to say, there was a young man, just to show how powerful this is. There was a young man who reached out to me when he was probably 7 or 8. And he said, Joy, I want to be on TV. I watch you all the time. And I said, come on in the station. I let this young boy at 7 or 8 spend time with me. And every couple of years, he'd come back because he would be like, Joy, well, can I come back? And guess what he is now? He works in TV. He's actually a producer. So that him being 7 or 8,
Wow.
he would tell me when he first wrote to me, he said, Joy, I literally stand in the mirror every day and practice as if I'm reading the news. That's how much I love it. And I said, oh my God, if this little boy at this young age feels that passionate about it, I need to help him. Come on in, spend a day with me. And it sparked a whole career. And now he's gone on. He's a producer. He works I think he was working the 11 p.m. newscast at a station in Virginia. No, he's in Bristol, Tennessee, I think. But anyway, it just shows the power of him being that young and just him being curious and reaching out, how now he's actually doing it. And he goes, Joy, you were the person that inspired me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that happened just from him making that connection.
That's amazing that you were able to do that for him and, you know, inspire him to be the person that he is today. And that's what I mean about, I like the fact that you are so articulate. And like I said, I've known you since you were like, yay, as I say, yay high. And just to see the person that you are today, inspiring, you help other people and you don't like stop other people from coming into your field. You're inviting to them and you like mentor them and make them be the great people they are today. And I just love and your podcast. I want to get your podcast out to people in case they're interested in watching it. How do we get to look at your podcast? What's the website or?
Yeah, so I was going to tell you that, but two things I wanted to say that you touched on is it's interesting. So once I already started my own podcast, One of the things I also focus on now is helping people who want to have their own online talk shows. And I'm a media coach. So that's another way that I feel like I'm giving back from all that I've learned, that I help women who want to come in and say, oh, I want to have my own online talk show, but I want it to be polished. How do I start? What's the process? And I kind of walk them through that. So that is another full circle moment for me, in a way to get back and work with these women who have the desire. Maybe they also had the desire to be little Oprahs. Or that was something that inspired them.
Yeah.
But then in terms of listening to the podcast, like, it's available on all podcasting platforms. If you listen to iTunes, or well, I guess it's Apple Music now, or Spotify, any of those, you can Google Play. You can type in the Joy Sutton Show. It'll pop up and you can subscribe. There's also my website, which is the Joy Sutton, SUTTON. .com, thejoysutton.com, and you can go in there and connect to the podcast as well. But it is available on iHeart, Google Play, Pandora, you name it, it is out there. So anybody who wants to listen can be inspired. And the show is really sharing you the journey of different women who may have felt stuck at one point of their lives or plateaued, and how they went after their dreams. And then every show also has a coach on there to talk about the barriers that keep us from going after our dreams. Because I believe, yes, you can have a dream, but oftentimes the barriers keep us. So we bring coaches in to deal with your mindset and different things that can help you to catapult to your next level. So it's really exciting.
I like that. I like that. The fact that it seems like your goal in life is to be a mentor and to uplift other people. I love that. And you're doing it on a social platform, which is even more like just empowering and beautiful. I think it's beautiful. And I love that. And I'm just so proud to know this little girl that used to tell the corniest jokes when you were little, but you are so amazing. I love it. And it's been, I can't believe that you're
45.
I can't believe you're 45. I can't believe you're 45. You
so
said 45?
crazy.
Oh my God.
Sometimes it goes by so fast, but when you said going back to like mentoring and supporting people, I really feel like if I had to have a moniker, I'm a dream builder. I see you and I can see the dream in you. And I can't tell you how many people came to me and like, I want to do this. And I'll say, I see it. And I believe in you. I remember one of my friends who's now a big influencer. She said, you believed in me before I believed in myself, Joy. And so I think I'm a dream builder.
I can see that. I can see that. I want to thank you so much for taking time out to talk to me today. I know you're very busy with your show and everything. I feel, like I said, totally honored that you took time out to talk to me on a Sunday. And we were having technical difficulties that you walked me through. I appreciate that. And I can't wait to put this out for everyone to see what an amazing person that I grew up knowing. And I mean, I was older than you, but you inspire me. So thank you so much. And I'll be tuning into your show. And I hope everybody else does too.
Oh, well, I'm so glad to reconnect with you. And, you were always a great big sister. I still can think of you as like a big sister. Even though we haven't talked in all those years, you always loved on us. You always were positive. I always have just a very fond memory of my time with you. And girl, you stayed in shape all those years. I was like, you look exactly the same. So the fact that you can look the same.
Please, thank you. You look exactly. I looked at you. Please, you look the same. I looked at you and I was like, oh my God, that's still Joy right there. That's still little Joy. I'm like, that used to carry on my back. But thank you so much, Joy. I appreciate you. And we'll talk. We'll keep in touch for sure.
Okay. And
thank you for your time. You look beautiful.
You too. And you are shining with your glasses on, girl, looking fabulous.
Thank you.